'tis the silly season! So, I'm sure you're all very aware of the Mike Hoffman drama, and that led to various trade rumors. I mean, the Sens were really, really bad this year. There were already trade rumors. Supposedly, there was a deal on the table to send Mike Hoffman to the Jets. By the way, from Greg Wyshynski. Just a reminder that the asking price on Hoffman at the deadline was a blue chipper and a first. So, here's what happened. Here's the first trade that happened this morning, this coming from capfriendly.com. The San Jose Sharks acquire Mike Hoffman, defender Cody Donaghy, and a 5th-round pick in 2020, while the Sens get Michael Bodker, Julius Bergman, and a 6th-round pick in 2020. So, whoa, okay, the Sharks just got a lot more firepower, and for cheap. Couple odds and ends, you might be like, Cody Donaghy, that name sounds familiar. Yes, he was one of the players that the Leafs sent to the Sens in the Dion Phaneuf trade. The defensive prospect that Ottawa gets, Julius Bergman, people have been saying that he's okay. He's 22, he had 20 points in 65 AHL games last year, 10 goals, 10 assists. That might not sound that amazing to you, but Ottawa's AHL depth is not great. Belleville, that's Ottawa's AHL affiliate, their top scorer had 32 points last season. Their top scoring defender only had 23 points. No other defender hit 20. And none of their defenders hit 10 goals. So maybe Bergman can contribute that way. As for the 5th and 6th round pick, I don't get it. I've made fun of that stuff in the past. Like, really? Is that what was holding up this deal from getting done? We gotta get a 5th. Whoa, that's crazy! Alright, well, we get a 5th and you get a 6th. You are noble as you are fair. Put her there, chum. I'm gonna add you to Facebook. With the addition of Bodker but the subtraction of Hoffman, the Sens save about $1.2 million in cap space per season, but $5.3 million overall in actual money, in dollars, salary, and that's really important to Ottawa. Which is good, but for Hoffman? Like, look, his value was obviously severely hurt with the whole controversy involving his girlfriend, but that's Mike Hoffman, man. He's really good. This from Sean Tierney is not nice. From Charting Hockey, here's one way to evaluate this nonsense. Hoffman was Ottawa's 3rd best forward, while Bodker is barely an above replacement level player. Boy, that sounds bad for Ottawa. But wait, it gets worse. A short time later, the Florida Panthers acquire Mike Hoffman and a 2018 7th-round pick. And without that 7th-rounder, there's no way this deal gets done. In exchange for Hoffman and that coveted 7th-rounder, the Sharks receive a 2018 4th-rounder, a 2018 5th-rounder, and a 2019 2nd-rounder. Which, hey, that's a somewhat decent haul for Hoffman. You get 3 picks, one of them's a 2nd-rounder, and after all, the Sharks are a rebuilding team. What? So, wait a sec. Am I wrong, or did the Sharks get a better return from Mike Hoffman than the Ottawa Senators? How do you lose 2 Mike Hoffman trades in one day, including one you weren't even a part of? So my first thought was, oh my god, Ottawa didn't want to trade Hoffman to the Panthers, which makes a ton of sense because they're both in the Atlantic Division. So what they did was they traded him to the Sharks. Doug Wilson from San Jose called up Dale Talon from the Panthers and was like, let's do business. And the Sharks and Panthers made a side deal, and I don't know if Dorian was aware. I'm not saying anything nefarious happened, but it sounds a bit like it, doesn't it? Also, this is the 2nd time that San Jose has benefited from something like this within the Atlantic Division. Once upon a time, the Kings had Martin Jones, and they wanted to trade him, but they didn't want to trade him in the division. They traded him to Boston, remember that? That's a thing that happened. And then Boston traded him to the Sharks. This time, however, it was the Sharks playing the middleman. And the Sharks make off like absolute bandits. The Sharks save $4 million in additional cap space and subtract $6 million in actual salary, plus they add 4 draft picks. Now, they actually traded away 2 draft picks, so really they're only up 2, but the 4 draft picks they acquired were a 2nd, a 4th, and 2 5ths. The picks they got rid of were a 6th and a 7th. So in this year's draft, they add a 4th and move up from the 7th to the 5th. In next year's draft, they add a 2nd. And in the next year's draft, they move up from the 6th to the 5th. Now, the Sharks still have a fair amount of unrestricted and restricted free agents that they need to sign, but now they have the cap space to do it. And they could still potentially add a guy like a Kovalchuk or even a Tavares. Then there's the Panthers, and if you cheer for an Atlantic Division team, this kind of sucks. Now, for the past couple months, everyone's been making fun of the Panthers. And why? Because they kind of helped build Vegas, who made it to the Stanley Cup final. Forgetting, however, that despite the fact that they missed the playoffs, the Panthers had a good season. They had a record of 44, 30, and 8. They finished with 96 points and missed the playoffs by just 1 point. For reference, the season before, the Leafs made the playoffs with just 95 points. And in the West, there were 2 teams with 94. They were Calgary Calgary and Nashville. Yeah, Stanley Cup final Nashville. And the Panthers were so hot down the stretch, who knows if they squeak in. And now they have Mike Hoffman. Huberdeau's in his prime. He had an excellent season, a nice season with 69 points. At just 22 years old, Alexander Barkov has emerged into one of the best two-way centers in the league. They're pretty tight against the salary cap right now, spending over $71 million. We think the cap is going to be 78, but we're not sure yet. It's not confirmed. They might have to move on from like a restricted free agent or two, but other than that, they're intact. James Reimer was good in net for them last season. Luongo was great, and if that happens again, they're probably going to make the playoffs. Not to mention they got a bunch of young guys on their roster who are probably only going to get better. And then there's the Sens. All right, I straight up do not feel bad for the team. It's at the point, lifelong Leaf fan, I feel bad for Sens fans. Because, dude, the Leafs were brutal. They had that crazy, I think it was like 11 wins in 55 games run, and then they fired everybody, and they had to finish last place, and there was some suffering going on there. But even during that time, I don't think it was ever as dark and as bleak and as sudden as it has been for the Ottawa Senators right now. Not to turn the knife, I know you've already heard this one, but they were a goal away from the Stanley Cup final. And they lose Hoffman for Bodker and a middling prospect and a late pick that they moved down from, and they don't even have their first pick for next year, or possibly this year. Dude, get this. From Chris Johnston, Dale Talon says Ottawa contacted him last week about acquiring Mike Hoffman, but the price was too high. Then San Jose phoned him last night. Ottawa was interested in making a trade involving players with Florida, according to Dale Talon. He never offered the package of picks to the Sens that he ended up sending to San Jose. So Pierre Dorian's got like 3 GMs he'll never call again. Wilson, Talon, and don't forget Sakic. They still have to re-sign Mark Stone. There's the prospect of losing Erik Karlsson. And if they do, they might lessen the return so they can get rid of Bobby Ryan. And now the conundrum of their 4th overall pick. You gotta either give Colorado this year's first pick or next year's. And 4th is one of the most difficult decisions possible. Because 4th is, well, damn, 4th! But what if you finish last next year? You get the best odds at winning the 1st overall pick in the draft lottery, and if you lose that, you have the best odds at getting the 2nd overall pick in the draft lottery, and if you lose that, you have the best odds at getting the 3rd overall pick, and if you don't win any of them, you get the 4th. Or you don't finish last, let's say you finish like 3rd last, and you don't win any of the lotteries, and you pick like, I don't know, was that 7th? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, Matt Duchene probably would have kept his mouth shut. So I guess, let me ask you, you're Pierre Dorian, okay? How do you save this? And before you answer that, remember, you either got to give up this year's pick or next year's. You got to convince Mark Stone to stay and at a decent dollar amount, and hopefully he doesn't get stolen via offer sheet, which someone should probably offer sheet Mark Stone. What's Ottawa going to match the offer sheet with? Money? How on earth do you convince Erik Karlsson to stay, to extend his contract a year ahead of time? If you can't convince him to, you gotta trade him, right? I really don't know what you do. I really don't. But you know what? You start small. Just looking at their cap-friendly page, here's something that seems like an interesting idea. Looking at their cap-friendly page, the Sens have the 4th overall pick this year, although that's with an asterisk, and also the 22nd overall pick from the Penguins, but they don't have a 2nd or 3rd rounder at all. Could you take the 4th overall pick, and that's going to be a good player pretty much no matter what, and trade down the 22nd pick and maybe in return get 2 seconds, 2 seconds and a 3rd, a 2nd and a 3rd, something. Dude, Montreal's got 4 second rounders. Call them, see if they're interested. Other than that, boy, the Sens look like they're gonna stink on paper. But heading into this past season, Vegas kind of looked like they would stink on paper. They had to get smart. How are you going to get smart? How are you going to find guys to give chances to that no one else seems to want to give chances to? Diamonds in the rough. Get some depth. Restock the cupboards with your AHL team, for crying out loud. Let me know down below. Solve it somehow. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends that you watched this neat video that went out of date in like 2 seconds because some other team probably made a crazy trade. I saw something about Artemi Panarin. What the hell was that?